Chime, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Before we get into what your foundation is doing, can you just give us some perspective on the Delta region? Clearly, you have been involved in that area for a while. And given all that is happening with insecurity in other parts of the country, I do get the sense that attention has been distracted away from the needs in the Delta region. So talk us through the challenges in the region and how Pint is getting involved.
Yes, thank you so much. As you said, I'm the Partnership and Engagement Manager at Penn Foundation, and we are engaged on our strategic review, but you discussed some of the challenges that are going on in the Niger Delta, and I think it's important to take a step back and understand what we're talking about. The Niger Delta region is one of the most resource-rich in Nigeria. It has one of the world's largest wetlands. It has Africa's largest mangrove forests. It has some of the largest freshwater fish than any other ecosystem. But according to the National Bureau of Statistics, from most recently, it has one of the largest unemployment figures in the region, especially the South-South. So what Penn Foundation is trying to do is mainstream peace building and market-based approaches that are community-owned and implemented to increase livelihoods, support individuals getting jobs, and help smallholder farmers and government make more strategic decisions to impact people's lives and support their sustainable development in the region.
So clearly it's all about trying to improve the livelihood of those living in the region. So as you do this strategic review and begin to plot a way forward for your activities over the next 4 years, give us a sense of the greatest needs and potentially the biggest opportunities to make an impact in the Delta region as PIND and others try to galvanize a lot more support for the region.
Well, first, I think that it's a key to highlight that this is a participatory strategic review. And so some of the needs and opportunities are ones that our organization may not even have identified, which is one of the reasons why we're engaged in a process that we secure ownership of individuals in the process by gauging our various stakeholders so they can do everything from helping us plan how the process should implement, help us develop the questions, analyze the data, so we can have a documented shared understanding, and that will finally lead to results that will emanate from our board of trustees. Right. We had a process earlier. We have one every 5 years, and in 2014 we had a strategic review process, and it identified some key things that we actually put into our 2015 to 2019 plan. One was that we want to continue to engage the stakeholders through surveys, forums, and focus groups. We want to increase access to finance, which was identified as very key. We want to improve access to electricity. We want to make sure our spread is evenly and appropriate throughout the 9 Niger Delta states. And then we want to obviously increase participation of marginalized communities, that's youth, women, persons with disabilities. So those 2014 recommendations form the basis of our strategy plan from 2015 to 2019. And what we're hearing so far from various stakeholders is that there's other areas we can further get into, whether it's internally displaced persons that happen to live in the Niger Delta, making sure we dig deep, especially when it concerns marginalized communities, youth, and especially persons with disabilities, which are rarely discussed and talked about. Some of our government partners are making certain conversations about how they would like PIN to operate in terms of innovations and in order to maximize some of the work they're doing, especially around planning and long-term planning for the Niger Delta region. So there's a lot of opportunities, but the key is to get the public involved in the conversation. We don't know what our blind spots are, and we want young people, we want persons with disabilities, we want people within Nigeria that have an interest or are connected to the Niger Delta to give them their opinion. So we've opened up the process. People can go onto our website, that's www.pinfoundation.org/PSR 2019, and we're inviting the public to give comments, give their thoughts on what they think their vision for the Niger Delta is. How do they think PIN, as one of the leading organizations in the region, should position itself to work on some of the strategic challenges that are in front of us? And should we carry over some of these key recommendations from 2014, or are there other areas that we need to focus on, whether it's renewable energy or urban resilience and things like that? So we want the public to tell us how they think we should focus and support efforts in the region going forward so far.
I imagine that one thing that could certainly help many people get involved is if they have real data on the opportunities and, if you like, the challenges as well. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because earlier you mentioned some statistics that the National Bureau of Statistics has provided, but I imagine that data could be a huge challenge in trying to really dimension the opportunity to work with, for instance, farmers in the region. Just give us a sense of how that challenge of data is being addressed right now.
Yeah, well, thank you. You pointed out something key. This issue of data was actually something that was mentioned in the 2014 strategic review, and our next strategic review, which is going to go from 2020 to 2024, may mainstream some of those data issues. PIN is trying to address some of these data challenges. We produce data, we work with organizations in order to synthesize information, give out analysis on key topics as it relates to the region. So we, for instance, have done electricity value chain studies on the Niger Delta. We've done value chain studies on the key areas, especially agricultural value chains that we're focused on. Those value chains are things like aquaculture, cassava, cocoa, palm oil, poultry, business linkages, etc. So we've done value chain studies to figure out what are the challenges, what are the constraints, because we're not interested in doling handouts. We are interested in connecting economic actors together in more of a facilitative approach so we can ensure that our interventions are sustainable. Right. So we have done research on all of these areas, and we're willing to work with different partners in order to support access. But it's not just there. We've done other information and research as it concerns sustainable building practices, for instance, or long-term planning, for instance. So we have, if people check out our website, pinfoundation.org, or we also have a community of practice where people can go and find out resources and information and data as it relates to the Niger Delta. It's called ndlink.org. That's right. ndlink.org. So if they visit any of those websites and connect with us, we can see how we can fulfill some of those data challenges and gaps so investors can come into the region and invest to support these communities.
All right, Chime, thanks for the information. Chime Asonye, Partnership and Engagement Manager at PIN Foundation.